Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be making some more cards today. So I'm using this beautiful pink paper from the kit. It's got these lovely snowflakes, and I'm just going to add some white satin ribbon with some double-sided tape. And then I'm going to trim that off with my Tim Holtz scissors. Then I'm going to add this topper. And I want to do an L shape, but it's kind of like a reverse L shape design. So I'm going to use ribbon to make the L's. So I'm using this Christmas tree ribbon from that same Hobbycraft pack I've been using. And then I just do the double-sided tape again and trim it. And then on that same pack is this really pretty silver trim. So I'm going to use some super skinny double-sided tape for that. And I'm just fiddling with it a bit because it is so skinny, it's really hard to pull up the backing. And I'm going to do that again underneath. I love layering different ribbons, especially if they've got different textures. So I've got like a really sleek one, and then I've got some ruffly textures on this pretty silver. Now I'm creating a quick bow. And if you want to know how to tie a bow, I have a video on that. It came out a couple of days ago. Now I am going to pop up this topper, and I'm just using double-sided tape, and I'm going to put some funky foam on the back. And then peel that off. I'm going to nestle that into my L-shaped cluster. And I decided to add this pretty snowflake, and that was the one from B&M. And they're all adhesive on the back, so you just have to stick them down. And the glue dot, and that's the card finished. Now I'm moving on to my second card. And I'm going to use that pretty pink snowflake paper again. And a little scrap of that, it's like woodland kind of paper. It's really pretty, it's got all the different branches and leaves on. And it has some of the same pink to match the background paper. And I'm just using some skinny double-sided tape to put that same silver trim from the last card on the edges, just to kind of frame that little panel. I like to do that when I'm not matting and layering, and it also adds a bit more texture. Now I'm going to pop up this tree topper, just using some funky foam. And on that tree I have used frosted lace stickles, and it's really pretty. I'm just using some silver Merry Christmas peel-offs. I actually changed the orientation of this and nestle it up to that panel, just because of the way that those two words nestled together. I decided it looked better. And that's a very simple card, didn't take very long to make at all. Now, this card I am mounting up the backing paper on funky foam because I want to use some ribbon that is sheer, and to mount that to the card panel without the adhesive showing, I'm going to tuck it behind the funky foam panel. And also, because it's such a simple card, I wanted the texture and the dimension to really stand out. So I put double-sided tape on the back, and I use my grid mat just to make sure it's straight and secure that. I've tied a bow, and I picked this little tag topper from the kit, and I thought it was great because it looked like a tag that you would put on a present. And the ribbon and the bow kind of gave that So I'm just using some funky foam to pop up that topper. That was a mouthful. And I'm going to do my glue, stick that down. I've put an acrylic block on top for a little while just to make sure that's stuck down a bit while I have a look for a sentiment, and I choose a peel off sticker. And now I'm just going to pop that up onto my card base and I'm done. It's such a pretty card, lots of dimension, lots of sparkle. I really love it. Okay, card number 3 I think we're on. No, this is number 4. I've made too many cards. I'm using some of this foil paper that I got from Aldi, and I'm just using it as a layer to map my backing paper on. And I've chosen this really pretty dark blue, and it's got like the Bethlehem star on it. It's really lovely. And I'm going to make a band that it's like a panel that's going to go across the middle. To use the border edging from the die cut sheets, so I just mounted this piece of paper on some cardstock to give it a bit more stability, and then I just used the cardstock to attach this border strips to the panel, and I'm going to pop that up on some funky foam to give it a bit of dimension because this is such a simple card. And I want to use this snowflake and that little sentiment topper. So I'm going to pop up the topper again with some funky foam. And then because this snowflake is resting on a panel, I need to pop it up to give it a bit of support. So I'm using these clear, it's not foam, it's quite stiff, but it's a clear version of dimensionals, I suppose. But they're really, really fiddly to get the backs off. So I'm sorry that you are going to watch me fiddle with this, but I thought I'd leave it in because sometimes when you watch people's card videos and everything seems really easy, you're wondering, what's wrong with me? Why does it take so long? So, good to know that we all struggle with things sometimes. My struggles are usually getting things straight and peeling the backs off things, or getting glue out of bottles. Anyway, I finished that, and then I realised I forgot to put adhesive on that funky foam, and that's my card finished. Very sparkly and shiny. Now I go for this Christmas tree paper, and I've already added stickles to some of the Christmas trees in the background, and because I spent so much time with the stickles, I don't really want to cover up that background paper, so I decide on a really simple, just one topper on the background paper. Really simple card design, and I've put in some funky foam on the topper, just using up some scraps. It's an odd shaped topper, so that works out really well for using up scraps. And then for a sentiment, I don't really want to cover up any of the background paper. So what I decide that I'm going to do is use these really tiny peel off stickers. And there's kind of like a hill bank in the background paper design. So I just nestle the peel off stickers along that hill bank and then just trim off the peel off sticker that hangs off the edge, and that is literally it. But there's so much sparkle, it's beautiful. So I'm just mounting this matte and layered background paper again with, it's just got some of that Aldi foil paper as a mat, and I'm having a play with a few bits from the kit, and I decide I want to use these snowmen that I've stamped and coloured in literally years ago, and they've been hanging around in my stash. And if you guys have watched my videos before, you know that my rule is if I think of a way to use something I've been hoarding, I just do it. And don't try and second guess myself, because otherwise I'll do this stuff forever. So if you don't have the snowman stamp set, just pick something to put there if you want to use the same layout that is a similar shape or size, and it should work. I'm really sorry I can't tell you what stamp that is, because I'm not even sure if it's mine. It might be my mum's. All I know is it's really old, like at least 10 years old. So I'm just putting some funky foam on the back of that because I'm going to pop it up. And I'm using that pink panel as like a base to ground them, so they don't look like they're just randomly floating. And to add to the kind of illusion that that's the grounding piece, I add the snowflakes and the Christmas tree to make a little scene. And now I'm going to add some of these. They're like really pretty white gems. I think I got those in the range, and they're going in the middle of some of the snowflakes. And I'm going to do my 3 in a row on the corner, and I go horizontal and then vertical, horizontal, vertical, just to give it a bit of interest, do something different. You'll see that better in the final close-up. And that's that card finished. Now this one's a bit more complicated, but it's still not difficult. It's just a few more steps. So I wanted to edge this paper, but I didn't have the right ink colour background, so I'm using my Pro Marker. And it didn't really show up as much as I wanted it to, so I decided I'm going to distress the edge to expose some of the core of the paper. And I do the same on this little panel. And I use my khaki Pro Marker. And because I want to use this angel hair, I'll do the same trick as I did with that big ribbon card, and I just put some double-sided tape on the back, line it up on my mat to make sure it's straight, secure it down. And because I've got to adhere that down with all that textured stuff from the angel hair, I use double-sided tape just to make sure it's going to stick to the card base and not come loose. And now I want to tuck this little panel underneath the angel hair, and I'll show you how I do that later. I'm just creating a little scene now, so I've used this Christmas tree peel off sticker, and I've coloured it in that same khaki colour because I wanted to add a bit more of the card, just to kind of make it look cohesive. And when I'm picking my Pro Marker colours, I usually take a key from my background paper. So later on I'll colour in a deer and I'll choose a brown that's in the background paper on one of those sprigs. Sorry, I've got hiccups. And I think I'm losing my voice. It's great for a voiceover. Anyway, so I'm fussy cutting these little trees. And I've made this circle die cut, which I've put that little deer on that I've coloured in that brown. And I'm just working out how I want to make the scene. And I decide I like that one. But I want to add some snowflakes. And then I decide it looks a bit random, like the deer is just floating in the sky. So I decide to add a sky and define like a snowbank for him to sit on. This would have been much easier before I had stuck down the peel off. So if you're going to do this, do it before, because it's just a lot easier. But it still works, so it's fine. And now I use some frosted lace stickles for the snow. and then I add some dots in the sky just to make it look like falling snow, and onto the baubles of the trees. Super pretty. Now I'm going to use double-sided tape, and I'm going to lift up the edges and put the backing sheet at an angle, and that allows me to sneak it underneath that angel hair without it sticking in some random place that I don't want it. If you want a tutorial on how I do that in more detail that's not so fast, then let me know. I'll be happy to do that. I'm thinking about maybe doing like a card hack video. So because that is still wet, that little bauble scene that I've made, I had to mount the bauble onto the foam and not the foam onto the bauble, if that makes sense. And I'm just being very careful with these trees because they're also wet. And that's the card finished. Oh, I added that little Christmas topper off camera. Now this was about the time that I was really struggling with my camera. So I'm sorry that the lighting has changed because I had to use a different camera. But I still wanted to finish this video, so hopefully it won't be too distracting. So I decided I want to use more of this pretty snowflake paper. I'm obsessed with this paper, and you'll see me fiddling with the camera a little bit from now on, just because it is a new camera and I'm not really sure what I'm doing with it. But please bear with me because some of the cards I've made are still really pretty and I want to share them. Now, because I'm so tight and this glitter paper is gorgeous, I decided to cut out the middle to save some. And you can see I've already die cut some stars out of that. And so I just made this little frame, which is going to look like a mat for my background paper layer. And I use my T-square ruler to get it straight. Now, because this is glitter paper, if I'm sticking something on top of it, it's really difficult to get it to adhere. So I'm using double-sided tape just to make sure. And then I peel off that tape and stick it down. Now, I'm having a little hunt. And I get fed up and find some chocolates. Oh dear. I'm looking for a piece of paper that I have glittered. And because my desk is such a mess, I don't realise that I have elbowed it off the side of my desk. But I thought I'd leave it in because it's really funny. And I think about being lazy and finding another bit of paper, but I'm just like, no, I just don't love it as much as that beautiful piece of paper. And then my laptop decides it's going to do something random and update me and blah, you know, life stuff. Distractions. So anyway, I found the piece of paper. I'm having a little play just to see if I like any of the toppers. And I decided I don't, but I do find that little sentiment, which is cute. Now I'm going to colour in this little snowman, and he is from the stamp set. And I try a few colours out, make sure they match with my background paper, and do some very quick colouring. Sorry about my hair, I just come out the shower and it's all a bit wet and straggly, but who cares? I'm only crafting. So I'm using a pale blue just to add some shading to the snowman. And then I'm going to go in later on with a blender. I think I've already done the blender pen. Oh, one thing I did notice is if you use the blender pen and then you go over it with the Spectrum Noir pen, the shimmer congregates where you've done the shading. So if you don't want that, wait for your blender pen to dry before you put on the shimmer pen. I've never noticed that before. It was really random, but whatever. I know it happened, so I thought I'd share it. Because you only find these things out by trial and error, don't you? And it didn't ruin it, so I was like, yeah, that'll do. I'm trying not to be perfectionist with my cards. So I'm going to pop up this little snowman topper, make him look like a bauble on a string. And I've coated that string off camera with glue so that it doesn't unravel, because that stuff's a nightmare. And I've tied a little bow. I'm going to stick that down. I'm going to trim the string. And that's that pretty card finished. Now, I don't know how many more cards I make. I think it's like another 2 or 3 maybe. But I find some more of this paper and it's really pretty. So I decided to ink it with the Delicata silver ink. And it doesn't show very much. So I decided I'm going to distress the edges to expose the core of the paper. And that will allow the silver ink to penetrate the fibres of the paper a bit better. And that works. So I was happy with that. So I mount this distressed piece of paper to the background. Well, card base. Trim it off just to make sure it's even. And you see me open my cards a lot, and that's because I have made so many cards the wrong way up, you wouldn't believe. So that's why I do that. Now, I'm mounting this bit of silver paper, and I think it's straight, but it's not, because the actual piece of paper itself isn't cut straight. So if you're making a card, please check that your bits are straight before you stick them down. Yeah, because you can use a T-square ruler, but if it's not straight to start off with, it ain't ever going to be straight. So I have to come up with something creative to hide that later on. But for now, I don't realise, so I'm carrying on. Ignorance is bliss. And I stuck down some very thin baby blue ribbon. Oh, and my mum's over, so I'm getting a bit distracted. She's hurt her finger, so I'm pulling some stamps off that she wants to use. That's nothing to do with making this card. But if you see an extra pair of hands, you know who they belong to. Now, this is where I realise it's wonky. And I think I've just stuck it down wonky, but then I realise I haven't. It's the actual paper. So I'm just having a think here about how I'm going to mask that a little bit. It actually doesn't look that bad on the camera, but in real life it's more obvious. And I'm just having a hunt through this basket of bits to see if there's anything I want to stick on it to hide that. And I don't find anything. So I decided to go and die cut some of these pretty snowflakes. Those are the Winter Wishes snowflakes from Hobbycraft. And I think they're exclusive to Hobbycraft. If you want them, you need to go there. But I do think they're in the sale at the moment. So, oh, I've also die cut a couple of those sprigs from the die that you get in the kit from the magazine. And I'm just gluing those down. They're so pretty and sparkly. And I glue down the sprigs. And I make a little bow. But I decide I want to add some dimension, so I just put some foam on the back of that, and then to hide the fact that that's a bit wonky, I put the tag on at an angle, and now you really can't tell that it's wonky. And to finish, I just add this little sentiment with some foam, stick that down, and that's my card finished. And hopefully you can't tell it's wonky. I don't think you can. Now, I'm having another fight with this tape runner. And I don't normally have problems with this particular brand. It's the Crafts 2 one. But for some reason, this new one that I've got is being fussy. But I found a hack. So there is a little peg that clips together to close the tape pen, and if you loop the second tape around that, it stops it from sticking to itself as it dispenses the tape. If you want a close up on how to do that, I can do one, but I just thought I'd share it in case anyone else is struggling. I'm just fussing with my camera here because I've lost connection and I can't see what I'm doing. And luckily it was still recording even though I couldn't see, so I didn't lose any footage. which was fab. So I've picked some pink to make a panel, and I've edged that in the silver just for a little different texture. I've die cut some of those sprigs in the pretty pale pink colour, and I'm popping up the topper with some foam again. And I just nestle those sprigs behind the topper, and I've die cut some pretty snowflakes in that same pink, and I add lots of sparkly gems to look like baubles on the trees and to the centres of the snowflakes and in each corner of the background paper. And I'm having a look now for a sentiment, but I decided to go with the peel off, and I nestle that onto the topper following the curve in the design of the oval, and I fiddle with it a little bit, but I get it somewhere I like, and that's my card finished. So sparkly and pretty. I really love this colourway in the pack. I think blues and pinks and whites are so pretty. Definitely a little bit more girly, I think, but I decided I'd indulge myself. Okay, so I'm doing another L shape, and to make it interesting, I'm choosing different textures and different like reflective papers. So I've got a bit of foil, and I'm going to add ribbon on top of that to add another texture. I'm trying out that finger lift tape from Every Crafts Pound, and I struggle with it a bit, but I think I'll probably get used to it. So I'm going to give it another go. And I make a little bow. And now I'm going to stick down that glitter cardstock, and because it's going over the ribbon, I decide to use wet glue just to make sure it sticks. And I trim off the little nubby bits left from the die cut sheet on the topper, and I've popped that up on some foam. I'm going to do my glue dot on the back of the bow, but before I do that, I'm putting some more snowflakes that I've die cut out of pink glitter paper. And then to tie in the two silvers in the background, because the glitter paper is brighter than the foil paper, I pick two different colours of pearls and gems just to tie that in, and I'm just adding them to the centres of the snowflake and sprinkling them about. And there you can see my final card. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you could comment, like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. I'm so grateful for all of your support and watching my videos and spending time with me. Thanks for watching. Bye.